image resolution, what it means is that then you don't need to take too much time. And you can imagine that, for example, if it's a child you're taking an MRI of, and you're telling the child to stay still, that won't happen. So what needs to happen is that these children need to be sedated. So it has impact, even though it was theoretical and very technical in 2007. Right now, Philips has this technology they call Smart Speed, which they are selling even out of the Kenya office. And now I want us to imagine that those theoretical developments are happening within our universities. And how many years is it since 2017? 2007. 18. And 18 years from now, things we are doing here are in products, in industries, and not just any industry. Industries at the same level as that build MRI machines. So that sort of technology. And I think it's definitely possible. Kenyans will be in Philips, in the US or anywhere else, leading those developments. So what my thinking is that for such developments to take place, we need a lot of institutional laboratories where people can sit, and ideas need rumination, you know. And we need to create environments where people can sit on ideas and think. And I think I'll just give a brief example of what we are beginning to try and do at the Center for Data Science and AI, DSAIL, which we try and bring together young engineers, computer scientists, health practitioners, all very multidisciplinary team with the goal of trying to solve real-world problems. So that's our motto. And I think I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from the earlier keynote. And those of you who had his response to a question and saying, really start where you are, start with what you have. And around the mountain, we have a very good environment, but essentially that environment is also a source of, there are problems that beg solutions. And you can imagine trying to solve those problems. So if you want to focus on protecting environment, when you walk around, there are people talking about planting trees, protecting our environment. How can technology impact that? And believe it or not, there are lots of companies making a lot of money, employing a lot of people who do things like environmental monitoring, which may not be the immediate thing one thinks about when they want to do technology, but it has impact, and people are doing it, and companies based in the US or elsewhere come and implement solutions, whether it's for conservancies, whether it's for ecotourism lodges. And so can we develop technology that will help in the monitoring of ecosystems and guide interventions, and say when a politician comes and says, we're going to plant 1 million trees, can we help say that these 1 million trees have actually been planted, are growing, and are impacting our well-being? So, for example, access to water resources and things of that nature. So, one of the projects we've been doing is water resource monitoring. This, on the left is a picture of the Ewaso, and on the right is Dikud. There's a catchment area called the Moringato, and what we were trying to do is develop IoT technologies to just monitor the state of the catchment area. And as an engineering problem, it then brings in a lot of engineering technology needs to come together. You need to build the sensor system. You need to think about communication. You need to talk to your people in computing about databases. When it comes to the data needs to be processed. Sensor systems, as we'll see later, are prone to malfunction. You need to do algorithm development in anomaly detection. So when people think about AI, they may be thinking about ChatGPT, but there are other applications which are maybe more mundane, but very practical as well. So, and essentially, we'll also need to do a lot of practical work, doing radio transmission testing, understanding communication environments and that nature. And this is all in the service of environmental monitoring. And then comes the modeling. We need to understand the data. How is it, if you're monitoring your river, what is it telling you about that you really care about? You can imagine applications in disaster preparedness or early warning systems. You can, and essentially things like that. So starting small can have a huge impact downstream. And this is more closely related to the example I was giving about monitoring forests. So we being from DCUT, we are interested in both the Mount Kenya ecosystem and other people planting, whether it's in the Aberdare ecosystem, and rehabilitating these ecosystems. And applying our technology to say, or technologies that are accessible to us, how are our ecosystems doing? How are the forests we claim we are replanting doing? And so this is a drone shot we took from, there's a forest we've been monitoring in Kieni, in Kiambu. And so it's about 400 hectares that has been replanted with indigenous trees. And what we've been doing is, since 2023, is going with drone imagery to try and see if we can then apply AI to the monitoring of the growth and the survival rates and things like that. So, but the first thing you need to do is go fly the drone, you need to collect the data, you need to collaborate with people in GIS, and essentially, and foresters, of course, because all these things are very multidisciplinary. And then when it comes to AI, you may have heard of, maybe now at least when I give talks about AI, certain languages, people are experiencing it. You know, for example, that ChatGPT, you interact with it very nicely in English, perhaps, but in other languages it may struggle. How can we make such systems work for us? Often what will need to happen is we need to collect our own data and train those systems, fine-tune them. So it's the same even in applications like forestry. You can take out models, AI models that will be able to recognize trees perhaps in Europe very well, but if you apply them to our trees, they'll tell you maybe there are no trees here, but we know our own trees, we can collect our own data sets, train our own models, and then deploy them to people who are willing to even pay for those solutions. People who are planting trees may be interested in selling carbon credits, for example. So what I'm trying to point out is that there's a lot of perhaps potential economic value even in areas that are not immediately obvious. So then we are engineers at the end of the day. We like to build devices. On that picture, we were trying to build a device that would use 3D stereoscopic imagery, so in computer vision, to essentially be able to, the reason, for example, I'm able to tell this depth is because I have two eyes. And similarly, you can estimate height based on the fact that you have two eyes. And we wanted to make it easier for the forestry colleagues to be able to tell us the true data about certain parameters of trees. So these are some examples of applications. So, and I think another thing I want to bring out is that there are a lot of experts in various domains who have problems that if you sit with them as a technologist and listen to their problem, you can easily develop a solution which already has an owner. And already almost, if you want to think about it in a business sense, already has a market. Some other thing which is a bit more, when we started doing this project, people maybe thought we were not very sane. We were developing what we call bioacoustic technology. Essentially, what it means is, I want to monitor my forest. And the well-being of my forest is determined by whether it's occupied by organisms, whether there are things living there. If there's nothing living in that forest, even if you think there are trees, it's really dead. And one way to do that is to listen to it. And so we were developing, there's this huge area of research called bioacoustics, but we wanted to develop also systems that we could fine-tune ourselves, customize for our local setup, and deploy. And right now, interestingly, years later, a company has set up shop in Nanyuki. And they were looking for bioacoustic experts. And guess where they came? But so that just means we all have problems that if we stay with them passionately enough, and it's a sound idea, eventually things will come through. Some other thing that maybe a running theme in this talk is us as technologists putting ourselves at the service of others. So, and others here I mean domain experts in other fields. In Kenya, we often have challenges with our weather forecasting. And sometimes the reason we have a challenge is because we don't have a lot of ground measurements of weather stations. And so this is another area. And you can imagine that IoT and other technologies can help if we can have low-cost weather stations. So on the graph on the right is what are known as the WMO is the World Meteorological Organization, and there are certain certified stations, and there are very few in Kenya. If I showed you the map of the US, it's very dense. And to be able to use these weather stations to inform forecasting so that farmers can use that data, you need a much denser network. So there's an organization called TAMU that has a network of sensors, and we collaborate with them on the technological side of data processing and quality control. And so in IoT, maybe a number of you have built sensors. It's one thing to build a sensor and then you deploy. You're receiving data, but can you trust that data? It's a big question. What happens to our sensor networks when we deploy them is what you see on the left there. This is a weather station, and then it's infested by wasps. So you may have deployed it, but you need to determine when you're receiving data, can I trust these measurements? Because if you want to then use that data for machine learning, if the data is not good, you can't hope if you use it, it won't be any use. And people actually want to pay for data, but it needs to be data which you can say really it's good data. So we've been working on determining on data quality assurance for weather stations, and then feeding that data into models such as, maybe you may have heard of GraphCast. The most famous machine AI model now is ChatGPT, hands down. But the other models being used. AI is really revolutionizing weather forecasting, and there's a model called GraphCast. But its performance in Kenya is not very good, just like the performance of ChatGPT in Kikuyu or in Meru wouldn't be that good. But with our efforts of getting this data and fine-tuning these models, we hope to make some impact there. And finally, I just want to give some examples. I know we are in this space where if you're in data science and engineering, sometimes you end up playing with, you can collaborate with very many people and potentially, hopefully, help others and have impact in multiple areas. And definitely healthcare is an important one. And so if you develop the right partnerships, and I think that's another thing that I think the keynote was very powerful. I think he talked at the end about partnerships. If you want to bootstrap yourself in a certain thing, it's the same in research. Bootstrapping, finding the right partners is important. We've been partnering with cardiologists at the University of Cape Town in developing AI for echocardiography. Echocardiography is really taking ultrasounds of the heart. And the reason they do that is for diagnosis of a condition known as rheumatic heart disease, which affects a lot of people in lower and middle income countries. And it's caused by repeated throat infections. And sometimes what you want to do is do a mass screening. And once you do a mass screening, you end up with a lot of data, and it's being done, a mass screening is being done by people who are not experts at diagnosis. So then this data has to be looked at by experts. But then we were asking the question, can we use AI for this? And so we had a partner who was a cardiologist and was making sure we were following the right things in terms of cardiology. Similarly, we've been looking at helping orthopedic surgeons perform assessments that would traditionally be done with X-rays by leveraging computer vision. And maybe I won't go into too much detail there, I may be running out of time. But in essence, talking with partners shows you what problems they have, and then you try and apply technology to help them. And hopefully, I think that is a way we'll end up really making an impact, and hopefully years from now, having our technologies embraced. I wanted to mention something about, remember the theme is, for us to do this work, we need institutional laboratories, and we need universities to be leading the charge. So all the work I've been talking about, it's definitely not me doing it. So the group is a lot of students, from PhD level students, masters, undergraduates. It's a big team. And essentially, it's upon us as academics to really nurture the next generation and show them and really create an opportunity for them to apply technology in meaningful ways. I wanted to just mention that there is an organization I help lead called Data Science Africa that does capacity building in AI data science. And it's just to show that I think we need to embrace technology, but also strive to play at the cutting edge of technology. And to do that, we need to create communities. It can't be done. It doesn't matter if it's just in DKUT or it's just in MUST. It needs to be everywhere for us to get where we want to be. So we need to give our youngsters opportunities to present work. I'm happy that there'll be others talking after me, and to interact with international partners so that we can raise our bar. So essentially, that's my conclusion. I think we want to leverage technology for societal benefit, definitely, and I think we should lead the way as universities. It should be that the communities surrounding us want to come to the university to solve their problem. I think the onus is on us to prove our worth. And we need to increase our technical level of all our STEM students, because as I was showing you, there are certain very deeply technical ideas. They start as technical ideas, but they end up in products. And we need to embrace that if we want to use technology for our own benefit. And we need to participate in the wider technical, intellectual community actively. So in addition to these conferences we have at our universities, let's strive to participate in international conferences, etc. So this is a slide to acknowledge the funders who funded the lab, DSAIL, and the team, the larger team, maybe together as opposed to this picture, which was individual pictures. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Maina, for that informative presentation. When you talk about AI, IoT, you speak to all of us in engineering, in computing, and it cuts across all the sectors. At this moment, I want to invite questions from the audience. I want to invite questions from the audience. Any question? Question from the audience? Can you take the mic? Do you have another mic, please?
Mine is not a question, but thanks, Prof, for your very, very insightful presentation. I've known him for years. We meet in other forums. Mine is just to emphasize on now, because we're all in this Mount Kenya region. There's DKUT, there's Chuka, there's Daraka, there's Karatina, Meru University, and so forth, that we really come together and work together and in area of interest, so that we can have research consortium and so forth. So we'll just basically map what area of interest all the institutions have, or that common interest in the entire area, so that, because there's the entire, like Meru University is the last university in Northern Hemisphere. So there's the entire Turkana, Isiolo, Marsabit, Nordistan, and all this, so as to, and including Mount Kenya ecosystem, so that a lot can be done even in other areas. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to collaborate, and I appreciate being invited to speak here. I think it's important for us to collaborate.
Thank you, Prof. When you were speaking, I was just marveling at what you know, and there's something that you say that with technology, you have to play at the edge. So what did you mean by that? And number two, where did your interest in AI or in technology, where did it start from? Thank you.
Okay, the last one is easy, and it helps me make my point. I started at, the first time I ever had the word machine learning was at the University of Nairobi. From my lecturer at that point, he was called Dr. Mushemi Gakuro, and he was very technical but very practical. He was developing text-to-speech systems for local languages and applying them to farmer advisory systems. So he was doing we were doing final year projects, and he told me, do you know what machine learning is? I said, maybe it's something to do with robots. But then he told me, go read about machine learning. And that's where it started, essentially. Then what I mean by playing at the edge is the following. If, for example, we're doing things like signal processing, AI, there's cutting-edge technology. There are venues or conferences at which that technology is discussed. Okay? What I mean is striving to be able to be in those rooms and have conversations at that level. That's what I mean. I hope does that make some sense? Somehow, okay. We can meet and I can maybe elaborate further.
Any other question?
Okay, thank you so much, Prof, for the presentation. My question is, you said that at any given time when you deploy a sensor somewhere and you want to collect some data, that you need to be so much cautious in that you ask yourself, are these sensors giving me the correct data that I want? So my question is, if I deploy a sensor somewhere for data collection, why am I worried so much if this sensor is collecting data in real time and maybe I am receiving that data here? Does it mean that it is about the sensor or it is about the environment that the sensor is?
Okay. It doesn't matter whether in this case the sensor is sending data in real time or not. The main point is, for example, what I meant was, when we are collecting data, and let's say you have a network of sensors, like I was showing, what you need to be concerned about is whether the reading that is being relayed to you, you have a number at the end of the day. It has said the temperature in this room is 20 degrees. You have to then be careful to ask, because this 20 degrees, hopefully you're collecting it to make a downstream decision. You need to ask, is this 20 degrees something I can trust? That's what I meant. So, because now if you have a wide area a sensor network like the one we are dealing with, which we have maybe over 100 weather stations in Kenya and 700 in the whole of Africa, you can't manually inspect all the data points which are maybe being relayed every 5 minutes. You need algorithms to be able to say, this data point is problematic, this one I can trust, and that's what I meant. Yeah, so you need to think about it's like any experiment. When you want to make the measurement, you must be sure that the instrument you're using, you're collecting the right data, and that the measurements are realistic. Like if it gives you a negative temperature here, you don't trust it, for example.
Any other question?
Thank you, Prof, for the fascinating presentation, quite eye-opener on going to ask about, you talked about Juakali sector versus high-tech and cutting-edge technologies. And in Kenya, Juakali sector seem to be ahead of universities. What is causing that? What is the problem? Or what brings about that? And yet we have quite technology universities and graduates out here coming out, but the Juakali sector seem to be beating us in this game of coming up with innovative, even if they are not maybe only, save for the computer programming and all these other engineering aspects, which is machinery and equipment, they seem to be running with it. So where is the problem? And the other question is, if I have an idea, but I don't know AI, I don't know programming, is that the end of my idea? Or how then do we put the two to come up with something that can impact, really? Because I think most people have ideas, they don't know how to now bring in the aspect of, everybody's talking of AI. It seems to be a very nice thing. I would want to really get there. So what do I do?
Yeah, I think it comes down. People who you trust, who can then help you, or who you can work together with to see the idea implemented. So that would be my answer to that. I think that's why I think we need more communities or places where you can, when you see sometimes, and I think I can say this here, when we are eating lunch in the cafeteria, sometimes in our Kenyan universities, we are talking about taxes, blah, 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 other things. But what if that is what we were talking about? I think that would solve that. And then the one about Juakali, I think personally I'm inspired by, I'm a bit jealous of them because they have captured the imagination of people as the people who solve the problems. And then we end up being disparaged as, oh, those are the people of theory, nothing practical. I think, so that's why I think the onus is on us. It's us to immerse ourselves in what I'm advocating for, identifying people who have problems and putting ourselves at their service. And then hopefully we can redeem our image. I think that's and then we can, after we've redeemed it, we try and overtake the Juakali guys. I think that's the way I would say it.
Any other question?
Yeah, thank you, Prof, for your inspiring presentation. Just asking this question on behalf of a friend who is a student here. The student is asking, how can he or she become part of your great rap so that she can be as good as Professor Maina?
I think the first step would be them asking on their own behalf. That would be a huge step in the right direction. And then, yeah, but yeah, actually, the lab is open to everyone. We have people who are there from University of Nairobi, JKUAT, Kibabii. We often have on the DKUT website, if there are openings, they will be put. And then there's an application process. People need to be intimate with mathematics and programming. So I would advise students to really, as I think again, you were being advised earlier that I think technology is double-edged. Let's use all these tools, but don't use it to your own detriment, that it maybe stifles your own development. So pay attention. There's a reason in engineering, for example, or in computer science, we emphasize mathematics. It's not useless. It's very useful. I was hoping to make the point that deep understanding of fundamentals often leads very quickly to huge breakthroughs. So maybe that's an answer. Yeah.
Okay, my question is that we talk about AI as a part of solving the problem in our society, but when you're still learning about the AI and machine learning, there's some challenges. Can you emphasize and tell us how we can overcome them?
Okay, challenges here, maybe you can be more specific. What sort?
Like how you can communicate through the prompting of AIs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because sometimes you can give a wrong output when you're expecting something positive.
You see, okay, so I think we need to make sure we are very discerning users of technology. And in fact, those two go hand in hand with being producers of tech, so that you also know its limitations and you're not using it blindly. So, like, there will be a lot of problems in using. You see, now, unfortunately, we seem to think AI is just these large language models and ChatGPT and things of that nature. But then if we had a more deeper understanding of these technologies, which at universities we should have, we would be able to even fix those problems. Okay, so that, because if we are likely to be misled, you can then imagine the casual user. Yeah. So I don't know if it's a hard question what you've asked, but I think having more of us who are leaders and builders of the tech will ensure it's more robust, and we also understand its limitations and are not just using blindly. Any other question? I can take over as chair.
So any other question? Any other question? So if there is no any other question, let's appreciate Professor Maina again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And because of that, Professor Maina, you will not go back to Nyeri empty-handed. So in Meru, this is what we do. So we are going to gift you with a present for finding time to be with us and to share with us. We really appreciate. So I will request Dr. Ito and the Dean, Dr. Mogaka, and anyone with a photo to help us to take the photo as the gift professor for the good work that he has done. Karibu sana, Prof. And we want you to come back again. And especially, we don't have our students. I will invite you to talk to our students. Most of them are not in session. Let's clap for Prof. is also a bag here. Just handing the bag to him. Karibu. Yeah, karibu, Prof. Thank you. Thank you. Say, huh? Yeah, you are welcome. So, Dr. Mogaka, do the necessary so that he stays around. Sawa. Karibu sana, Prof. Say hi to Nyeri people when you go back. Thank you so much. So now we continue with our program, and I want us to go by the list in the program. The second presentation is by David, is this Mwada? David Mwada, Job Kerosi. Any one of them who can do the presentation? Oh, you're David. Karibu sana. So David, you have 10 minutes to do the presentation. Then after David, we are going to have Simiu in that order. So after Simiu Kelly, we are going to have Ryungu. She's not there. Then Dismas, Amos, they are not there. So we are going to have the team of Ben Asiago, George Njagi, and Kerosi.
Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. Okay, I'm David Mwada, a student of BTech Electrical, graduating on October. I'm here to present to you my project. The topic of the project is Solar Automated Scarecrow. And as the name suggests, it is automated. That is, first it's powered by solar, knowing that solar is efficient, it's environmental friendly, and in this system we have some components that we are going to see as we proceed. And my main objective the main objective of this project was to design and to come up with a automated scarecrow that will scare away the birds or pests in the field, in our field, so that we can increase the production, knowing that agriculture is the backbone of our economy. And to achieve the main objective, I had some other objectives, that is to use the components that made my system, that is the solar, the servo motors, the red, green, blue LEDs, and the speaker and DF player mini. And my main problem statement was when I was passing through Mwea, I saw some farmers, or it's not some, but all the farmers, with the cans, beating the cans so that they can scare away the birds. And I wanted to eliminate that by coming up with this automated scarecrow to help them so that during that time they can be doing some other work other than scaring away the birds. So it will help in that. And what supported this is, according to Brown, we had the traditional ways of scaring the pets, that is using the stationary scarecrow. The stationary scarecrows that we are using now, the birds have become used to. If you go to those fields, you see the birds landing on them. They are not being scared because they are stationary. They are not moving. Yeah. Another thing is to use, as Smith said, to highlight on the crop damage, the pest damage is 30% of the losses that we encounter in our fields, and that a lot of losses that we encounter, being that our backbone of the economy. And now, under Williams and Green, it's the use of the solar. Solar being the sun is free, and solar is environmental friendly, and that's why I chose to use the solar to automate the system. And under the methodology, these are the components that made the system. The first is the solar panel that is powering the whole system. And we have the batteries where we are going to store the energy for maybe the night use. We have the microcontroller, that is the Arduino, as we say. It's to be able to monitor all to, it's like a brain. It's like a brain of the system where all the processes occur. We have the sound sensor. The sound sensor is to detect the sounds of the pests so that it can be able to communicate with the microcontroller so that it can be able to activate the whole system. And the whole system, to be activated, it activates the first servo motor. It's the rotating head, and the rotating head, it has two LEDs that make it visual, scaring this pest. And the second servo motor, there are two servo motors for flapping arms, and the red, green, blue LEDs to increase the visuality or the scaring of these pests. We have the DF Player Mini. That is it's a component where it's composed of the SD card where files are stored so that it can be able to output the sound through the speaker when the sound sensor detects the sound and communicates with the microcontroller to activate it. So these were the results. So under the results, we have the pictorial diagrams of the system. The first the first picture, we have the solar panel. It's a 8-watt solar panel. So under my calculations, I chose to use the 8-watt solar panel. And the second one is the sound sensor. The third one is the microcontroller, that is the Arduino. The third one and the fourth one are the flapping arms. The fifth one is the speaker, where the sounds are output. And the sixth, we have the DF Player Mini, where we have the SD card installed. The sounds. The examples of the sound that I used are the owl sound. We all know that the birds are scared by the owl. We have the dog barking. Yeah. And then we have the SD card, 32 GB SD card, which is placed in the DF Player Mini for the sound. The rotating head with two LEDs. The two LEDs, it's to make or to increase the scaring of the birds, as or to make it more, to look like more human. Yeah. And other discussion, this discussion is all about what entails in the system, and the system, the components that I'm using in the system, and they are powered by the solar panel, and then if we embrace this system, we are going to help the farmers so that when during that time they are scaring the birds, they might be maybe weeding or doing other thing other than the scaring of the bird. In conclusion, as the professor said, the IoT, Internet of Things, I think this project, it's basically, it touches on the Internet of Things, monitoring and controlling the pests in our farm. Yeah. Under recommendations, I had 3 recommendations. The first one is to integrate a camera in the system so that it can be able to maybe to be accurate which pests it has detected. And the next one is to connect it to a mobile phone so that when even the farmer is away from the field, he or she can be able to monitor his crops or to monitor the pests in the field. And the last one is to network the scarecrows. If you have multiple scarecrows in the farm, you can be able to maybe control all of them at one system. You say one system. Yeah. And that's the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David, for that presentation. We have just decided to change the form.
several scarecrows that you have in the field. Yeah. Okay, under the distance, the sound sensor can detect around 50 meters. That is, the diameter is 100 meters, and for the sound, maybe 100 meters. Yeah.
Okay, my question is, there are other places that the climate change will be a problem, like you are using a solar, but there are places that even that sun is not there. So how can you help them? And second, on that weather, like you can get, it's a rainy season, and the things that you are using, they can be affected with rain. That is like the speaker there, and even the solar sometimes. Okay, how can you deal with that? And the third question is, to those who cannot afford those things, because like someone might have 1 acre farm, and she or he cannot afford all the equipments that you have used. Is there any other alternative that you can help them so that they can be able to scare away those crews? Thank you.
Okay, as I said, for my project is just a base of, or a start, let's say a start. And by maybe coming together and maybe opening up the mind of one person, it can maybe open up to many opinions or many suggestions. So, for me, you have said about the rainy or the environment. So during the night, as I said, it has the batteries that have been charged maybe by the solar. So at that time, it is going to use the batteries to automate the system. But for maybe for the affording, for the components that I have used, my budget was around 4,000. Yeah, 4,000. And I think that's, if you care about your crops, because for one harvest you can get more than that 4,000. So to afford that scarecrow for the benefit of your crops, it's very recommendable. So the price issue for the bigger fields, it's not an issue.
Thank you. My question is, did you use any programming language? Or if you used, which one did you use? And, or if they are a combination of many, what are they? The platform that you used. Thank you.
Okay. The programming language that I used, Python, for the training of the sound sensor. If you go to website, there is this website called YOLO to train the sound sensor. That's what I used, so that the sound sensor can only detect sounds of pest only. That's the birds, maybe some animals like cows, goats. So that's the why I used Python. And the other one, the obvious one, Arduino, so that I can be able to program the Arduino.
This is not a question, but to encourage him to move further. Probably what you need to do now is to now draw the circuit, draw the circuit, print that circuit, put all the components together, and then have a product which can be marketed. Are we together?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
product so that there's a box there with all the manuals, everything. Now you can, unaweza uzia watu. Are we together?
Yeah.
Whether it works, whether they like it or not, at least you have a product, eh?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So go beyond that so that you can be able to show it. Should be your CV, eh?
Yeah.
Yes, and also post your work in GitHub, eh? So that when you go and look for work, you can tell somebody, look, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
You know, it's like your CV. But produce a product.
Yeah.
Are we together?
Yeah.
Whether it's sellable or not, but that's how Chinese are beating us. Very simple thing. They put them together and come and sell to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David, for that innovative.
And when you look at the global context, actually it originated from Bangladesh, where it was first adopted, and then Africa. And now the program is being implemented in Kenya. And in the local context, despite its implementation, in Magarini sub-county, 5.6 million Kenyans still practice open defecation. And this is the challenge the Ministry of Health and Sanitation is currently facing by having a lot of programs in the rural areas trying to solve this particular problem. So Magarini sub-county itself, it's characterized by poor sanitation infrastructure where water is very scarce and which is also popularized by the poor socioeconomic status of the people of the county. And the main aim of this study is to assess how sanitation infrastructures support CLTL's adoption. And some of these infrastructures, these are they are like the toilet, the sanitary facilities, and even the hand washing facilities. These are the ones that I was basing on because they actually influence how how the people take the issues of sanitation very seriously. So the main objective was to determine the extent of existing sanitation infrastructure aiding CLTS within the sub-county. And when we go down to the significance, it provides data-driven insights for policymakers and stakeholders to come up with solutions that will help downgrade or that will help at least change the sanitation phase in Magarini. So the target outcome was to inform infrastructure-focused interventions to improve the CLTS outcome. And when we come to the public health focus, we were focusing on reducing fecal oral diseases through community empowerment. Remember, CLTS, it's a community-based interventions. It's the community themselves that they have to come up with these interventions. They have to come out that if we need to make the sanitation status in our village better, then it is our mandate as the community. So this is a community-based or a community-centered intervention. And it also helps shape the policy implication where to guide investments and other tailored sanitation structures in Magarini. So the methodology that I used here, the design was cross-sectional with convergent research approach, and then the sampling was stratified and proportionate, and it was across the 6 wards of Magarini sub-county. The sample size was 388 households, calculated using the Yamane formula, and the tools were structured questionnaires. Analysis was done by SPSS version 25. And I also obtained my ethical approvals from NACOSTI, and also a prepared informed consent that was signed before the questionnaire was tasked to the household heads. And when you look at the study design and the target population, so we targeted, okay, in this study, I targeted the household heads together to gather insights on sanitation practices within their household. So the household heads, these are the people who know, like basically they were the best people to give more insight on the sanitation practices that are being carried out. And the study area, as I've said, it was in Magarini, which is also have some economic activities such as salt mining, palm wining, palm wine tapping, and rain-fed agriculture. So palm wine, this is local brew that is called Munazi at coast. So basically, Magarini, it is an area where the poverty rates are high, and one of the main economic activity that they do is it's actually to make this wine. And now, that just worsens the sanitation status, because most of the household heads do not have the funds to come up with a proper sanitation facility. So the target population was 12,785 households, with the focus on household heads who are 18 plus. You know, there were some households that they did not have like a real adult, and now any person of sound mind above 18 years was interviewed in that particular households. And the sampling frame was 388 households, which that was spread across the 6 wards. So there is one thing that I need to state here, that when we come to the sampling, we used household registers and random numbers tables to ensure unbiased selection. So this is how we came up with the sampling technique for this particular research, and then sequential household interviews were also done to the household heads. And in households where there were polygamous, we did an interview to the women in the follow-up interviews. And the structured questionnaires were administered after obtaining an informal and informed consent. So when our data analysis, we use SPSS version 2025, and quantitative data, which was collected, was analyzed using descriptive and inferential statistics. And for qualitative analysis, thematic categorization aligned with study objectives for contextual depth, and also, as I've said, the informed consent was also taken before the interviews were taken, and this was a voluntary participation where all respondents and assistants were briefed and ensured data privacy. So for the key findings, it was on exploring relationships between location and existing sanitation infrastructure. Yeah, so in Magarini sub-county, one of the key problem was location and the available sanitation infrastructure. Like you can find that maybe in a village there is only one latrine that is serving 3 households. So you will find that there are people who will avoid using that latrine because it is located far away. And as we know, when the call of nature comes, you have no time to go for the farthest point. So I use chi-square to determine relationship between location and existing sources of infrastructure. And our key statistical findings are as follows. We found out that the chi-square test confirmed a statistically significant link between location and residents' perception of existing sanitation infrastructure. And on the moderate association, using Kramer's 0.224 indicates that geography moderately influences how people perceive sanitation infrastructure. When this infrastructure, maybe they are located at a place where people cannot comfortably access them. And I can give an example where maybe you are staying in an extended household and then there is only one latrine. So when that latrine is being used by your mother-in-law, technically you can not use that facility because of where it is located. Then on the implications, residents' views on sanitations were not uniform, and they varied meaningfully by location, showing that geographic context matters in any sanitation mapping. And also, when we talk about the broader context, it echoes findings from Tamwell et al. That said that rural or peri-urban areas often face infrastructure deficits and poor maintenance. So that was result number 1. Then result number 2 was on exploring relationship between location and adequate space to construct latrines. So this was another result where now we were looking at the exact location vis-a-vis the adequate space for constructing the latrine. And when we look at the key findings, we find that there was no significant relationship between location and adequate space for constructing latrines. And as we can see, space availability for latrine is uniform across all locations. And using Fisher's exact test, it supports this uniformity. Then these findings contrast with other evidence which was done by Huda et al. 2021 that said that urban areas face more space constraints due to higher population density, and it suggests that findings may differ in other contexts or studies. And when you go to the broader context, we find that as per Jenkins and Curtis, they state that income, education, and land ownership
Should be winding up.
impacts.
Should be winding up.
Okay, sawa. Impacts sanitation access more than geography. So in conclusion, we find that there was no significant relationship between location and adequate space for building latrines. And this is supported by the chi-square test, which suggests uniform space distribution across all locations. Also, location influences perceptions of existing sanitation infrastructures, as explained, and there was also a higher dissatisfaction in certain areas and locations such as Gongoni and Magarini, which show that there is need for targeted interventions in those particular areas. And then socioeconomic factors were also more impactful than location for space for latrine constructions, where income, education, and land ownership played key role, and they should be considered to improve sanitation access. Then also, lastly, policies are very crucial, where by tailored interventions, they will be more effective, and also more solutions can be channeled, can be brought in front just by this. So, yeah, and those were my references.
Okay, now we invite questions to Mr. Simiu. Questions to Mr. Simiu. Questions?
I'm curious on your last findings on no relationship between location and no relationship between location and adequate space for latrine. Could you please explain what that means in depth, in brief? Because what do you mean location and space for latrine?
Yes, so when you look at the geography of Magarini sub-county, it is located at the lower end. Actually, Magarini sub-county, it's where now the greater River Athi joins the Indian Ocean. So the place, at times, it has a lot of hills, and now you will find that most of these homesteads, and also by the nature of floodings, so the government has been telling people to move to higher grounds, and now when you will find that a lot of villages are clustered on top of the mountain. And so, that's where now this conclusion came, the relationship between location and adequate space for latrine. So location, maybe on top of that hill, the households or the homesteads may be clustered, and so when you decide to come up with a toilet, now the people will rather agree to come up with one big facility to accommodate all, other than each and every homestead owning a facility of their own. So space was an issue because of the location of most of these households.
And of course, did you consider culture then? Because in subcultures, you will find that they will not want to share toilet between in-laws and parents. Does that affect these findings? How does culture affect this finding of having one instead of everyone putting up his latrine?
Okay, so when those households when they were being set up, they were okay. Like mostly they were in support of the government to help the families move to higher ground. So the communities themselves agreed that the parents will be staying like in one side of the place, and then the sons and the daughters and the newly married ones, they stay in, like now they set homesteads. Yes, where now people of the same age sets can be staying in the same homestead, vis-a-vis those ones of an advanced age.
Any other question to Mr. Simiu?
Okay, thank you, Simiyu. I just wanted to help me with this clarification. Yes. When you talk about sanitation and waste management, does it follow under the School of Engineering or Public Health?
Okay, when you talk about sanitation and waste management, it falls under the School of Sanitation, like the SRI. The Sanitation Research Institute, but now we are being housed under the School of Engineering. Yes.
Does public health in any way come in hand with what you're talking about?
Yes, because now when we are talking about sanitation, we are talking about coming up with the designs of these facilities. So when it comes to designs and constructions and identifying areas where they can be put up, now that's where now we shall need the engineering knowledge when it comes to these sanitation interventions. And that's where the marriage is. Yes.
Some clarity on why sanitation is in the School of Engineering. It's a little bit historical, and that is that the person who started these matters of sanitation in this compound was from the School of Engineering, Department of Civil Engineering. And because of where she was domiciled, then her work was kind of domiciled in the school in which she was. However, I think there is a move to establish something in sanitation, either in the institute or perhaps they create a department somewhere else, either with us or in the School of Health Sciences. So we'll have to wait for what management will decide in the final end about where to domicile sanitation.
Any other question?
remaining with Ben and George Njaki and Fiona, you are presenting? And Fiona. So I want to give all of you 10 minutes each. Then we'll come to finalize with a question and answer session. So George is here. Good. So George, I'm giving you 10 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to present on the design, fabrication, and performance analysis of a mixed mode dryer for black soldier fly. We did this with my colleagues, Ben Asiago and Mr. Job Kerosi. From our association with the SRI, this is where it's all coming from. So as you are aware, the black soldier fly is a non-pest insect that has, or rather is very good at converting waste, organic waste. Organic waste will include such as food waste, we have wicker waste, or rather fecal waste. So that's what we had concentrated very much on, the food waste and wicker waste. So this insect is able to convert a lot of, or rather convert this waste into protein, and that happens during the larval stage where it is found to be a feeder. So it consumes a lot of this waste, you get a lot of increase in weight, and so that the larva that you start with gains a lot of waste, and therefore we look at that larva as kind of a source of a food that we can use in feeding livestock. So what we did was basically to seek an intervention, an eco-friendly intervention of how it is that we could now apply eco-friendly techniques to convert this into something that could be made use of. Now, when we dry, most dryers will of course use solar energy, and the dryers can be either what we call direct. Direct is where we expose what we are drying directly to the sunlight, what you find as using with grain and fruits and all those sorts of things. So when you expose it, then we talk about, when you expose either produce or fruits to direct sunlight, then we talk about direct drying. You can also have indirect drying, and indirect drying, here you modify the properties of air, and then you pass it over in an enclosed space where you contain what you are drying. So the drying there is indirect. That is, as the hot air passes through what you are drying, then it carries out, or rather carries away the mixture, or rather the moisture. You can also have what we call the mixed mode. The mixed mode dryer basically uses both. That is where you have part of the dryer exposed to direct sunlight, and then part of it you modify the properties of the air that you want to pass through what you are drying. Now, our specific objectives for this were to, first of all, provide intervention through the design, and we also wanted to analyze the performance of that design of a dryer. The second one was to evaluate the ability to overcome the challenges that you find normally with direct drying. When you directly dry produce like, say, beans, flowers, fruits, etc., we have contamination. The stuff that you're drying will also be exposed to insects, birds. Depending also on the weather, you might also have contamination from other things that might grow on it, such as moths and such others. So in our dryer, what we did was we obtained some larvae from the SRI Institute. Here we looked at about 750 grams. So we picked a few samples of that, which we immobilized. And after we immobilized, we used a dryer. Now, the dryer that we had was basically something that we had adopted from what is existing. And the dryer is basically what you can see out on the left of my slide. So on the right, we have the exposed part, and on the left, we had an indirect heater. So what we had in this particular one is that we let air get into the dryer. Then we had this setup with the absorber. The absorber was something that we simply fabricated with the object of retaining heat and heating the air that was passing around. And then we allowed that air now to go into the heater chamber, what you are seeing on the left. In the left, we had a number of drying racks where we had spread out our larvae, one deep. The same was made with some goals on the underside so that we let the air basically pass through it. Now, the air we are getting from the collector on the left got hot, and so because hot air rises, it passed on, rather passed through the trays that we had containing the larvae, and at the very top, we allowed that air now to escape. So we kind of used those two bits of this. So what you have on the left is basically an indirect heater. So we were simply modifying the properties of air on that, and then we passed that on to the right of that, where we basically now carried out, or rather carried away the moisture as the air rose. We had several design parameters that we used in the construction of that. And for this, we had considered a number of equations. We had about 21 in total. Those equations basically dealt with the relationship of the different parameters. The parameters we're talking about here are the temperature, we are talking about the areas, the volumes, the heat flows, and all that. So we had a number of those parameters. I've only picked a few. Things like the angle of, that's supposed to be inclination, not declination. Because as you are aware, when the sun rises and sets, something happened to those angles. So the kind of insolence that you get on the collector is not constant throughout the day. So there was that we had to think about. We had issues like the maximum slope. If you look at the collector I have, you can see what we have on the collector on the left. It's inclined at an angle. That one we are able to basically determine from one of those equations, what we find as the optimum slope. So we had equations that allowed us to be able to determine that angle. We had other factors like heat removal, the thermal efficiencies, all this. So from these equations, we're able now to determine that, and the information that we got is what we used to come up with the dryer that you find.
George, you have 1 minute.
So this is what we managed to do. So on the performance of the dryer, we got the drying, the temperatures that we basically went out to measure. So there was the ambient temperature we looked out at. We were also interested in the temperature of the air that got into the collector and what came out. And this is how the three varied. The moisture content variation. We started, as I said, with 750 degrees, or rather grams of larvae. And by around the 24th hour, that is after 3 days of exposure, the curve went flat. So we were able to actually extract most of the moisture in about 24 hours. Then the efficiency. So we were able to plot that out, and we found that the efficiency of our collector was maximum at 12 noon when the insolence was maximum. Yeah.
Thank you, George. So I want to ask for anyone who has a question.
Pick two quick ones. Can this system be made intelligent now that everyone is talking of AI, and how? And then, how were the samples? Were the samples weighed at every interval to determine the dryness, or how did you determine the dryness? And how was the moisture content measured throughout the experiment?
Yeah, we did withdraw those trays from the dryer at intervals, and we measured. Actually, we dealt with this every 30 minutes, because our experiments basically ran from around 9 in the morning up to 6. So we did those interventions at half-hour intervals where we were able to measure. And then the moisture content is basically a function now of what we measured. Because we realized that you started with wet stuff that when we measured flattened out at some point. As you have seen from the last slide, the second last slide, what we find there. So after about 3 days, because we are basically dealing with about 8 hours of insolation per day. So we found that out, rather it flattened out by around the 24th, 23rd day. And so, because there was no any other changes that we were able to determine, then we assumed that our level was dry. The AI, I think we shall discuss that one. Yeah, that's why I'm talking about a discussion.
Also, I have a question, George. Remember, when you talk about PSF, it is a very critical component in the sense that any prolonged exposure to heat, it will degrade the protein value. So I don't know how that was factored in, because it is not like any other matter you want to dry, but a component of protein value can be degraded if at all you are exposing it for a longer period.
The three persons who are concerned with this were actually concerned with the reduction in moisture. We did look at that prolonged exposure could degrade the kind of protein, but for us, we did not have that information that you basically will degrade that. We looked at this, that drying and cooking are two different things. And when you cook, you'll be talking about elevated temperatures. So we thought if we deal with these at much lower temperatures, then we would not be degrading the subject matter that was with us. But perhaps the nitty-gritty now of what happens with the protein and that, I think we didn't consider that. And it is an idea for those who are coming behind us. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other question? Good. So can we clap for George? Thank you so much, George. Fiona, I think you are closing for us for today.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you are not tired. We are closing up. Mine will just be short. I hope to take the 10 minutes that have been given. Okay, so my research is on the techno-economic optimization of a microgrid for university campuses in Kenya. And I was using the software known as HOMA. And in this case, I was designing a system for Mary University of Science and Technology. I'm Fiona Atieno, and my co-authors for this research is Dr. Francis Njoka of Kenyatta University and Dr. Roy Orenge of JKUAT. Yeah, so currently we know the way the global trend is with energy systems. We are trying to develop systems that are more sustainable and also a system that is cheaper, and we're going to use, and we're also going to reduce the carbon footprint that we have. Yeah, so what we are doing, why is this necessary? Population in the world currently, it's rising, so also the energy demands, it's also increasing, and most of our generation systems in the world, we use fossil fuels for energy generation. It's just that here in Africa that we have more renewable energy sources, and as you know, the global energy prices for fossil fuels is currently on the rise, so using such systems also, it's not that sustainable. And if you're using these systems, especially for fossil fuels, definitely we are going to have some environmental concerns because there's a lot of emissions that leads to global warming, and also we need to work in either to mitigate all the factors that leads to climate change. So therefore, there's need for us to use renewable energy system because these systems, number one, they are clean, they are affordable, because they keep on replenishing themselves. So therefore, at the end of the day, even your maintenance cost for these systems will be less And these systems also, they're more accessible for everyone. No matter where you are, in the urban setup or even in the rural setup, you can still be able to access these energy systems. But even if you have renewable energy systems to generate your power, at the end of the day, if you have one system alone, that is, if you want to use solar PV to generate your energy, then definitely there's a question of, at night then, what will happen? Yeah, if you're using wind, if at all there's no wind during other times, if the wind speeds are not that good, then will you not have this power? So it is important for us to come up with a system that will mitigate this. That is why I have developed a hybrid renewable energy system for Meru University, because this system now, for my design, I included solar PV. I also included wind turbines. I also included biomass, hydro, and batteries for our storage. So our system, at the end of the day, if you include all these systems, your cost will reduce, and also it is more reliable. So the objective of my study is to design an optimized hybrid renewable energy system containing solar PVs, the wind turbines, the hydro, that is now is going to be the micro hydro, biomass, and batteries for Meru University of Science and Technology. And my specific objectives, first, is to assess the energy consumption for the university. And also, number two, I had to check what is the resource potential, because for solar, wind, hydro, and biomass, you need to have these resources available, and at how much. And then later on, I modeled and then optimized my system using HOMA. Yeah, so for the methodology of my study, first and foremost, I looked at the load profile of Meru University of Science and Technology. So for these, I looked at historical energy bills for Meru University through, I used the KPLC bills that was sent for Meru University. I looked at the energy consumption from 2016 to 2022. I looked at the energy bills for each and every month. And then I created a load profile to check on how much energy do we consume per day. And then for the resource assessment, that's what I did. So I had to look at the solar irradiance for the location of my study, of which I used PVGIS to look for the solar irradiance of Meru University. And then I also checked on the wind speeds of the area. So here I used the Power Access Wind Viewer by NASA. And then the flow rate for the nearby river for Meru, that is close to Meru University, and also the biomass resource. How much biomass do we get in a year? So the tons per year. And then I looked at the economic parameters for all the components, that is for the solar PV. Yeah, so how much does it cost? What is the capital costs, the operation and maintenance cost, the replacement cost for each and every component, that is for the solar PV, the wind turbines, the biomass generators, the batteries, and now also, since we have here systems that generate DC power and our loads are all AC, I needed to include an inverter that is going to convert this energy from DC to AC. And then I did the simulation in HOMA, and then once I did the simulation, the system gave me a configuration of all these components, so giving me the sizes, yeah, and I chose the system that had the least cost. Yeah, so these are the load assessment for the place. As you can see, for Meru University, how much we consume in a day is 1,158 kilowatt hour per day. And from my daily load curve, most of the energy normally we consume between 8 to 5. Why? It's because that is when we are mostly in session, and also our labs are running, and also people are in their offices, and that is the time when they consume most of the energy. And then from the energy consumption from 2016 to 2022, yeah, so there was actually an increase in energy consumption. Why? Because our student numbers kept on increasing. And then in 2019, the energy consumption is high because there's one of the loads that we bought in our labs. Actually, that particular gadget, once it was switched on, the amount of energy that it was consuming is very high. And actually, to date, I don't think it has been they have run it in the foundry. So the energy consumption during that time was high. In 2020, the energy consumption was quite low because we were not in session throughout that year. So for Mary University, our peak load in a day is 90 kilowatts, and that informed on the size of the inverter that we are supposed to use for our system. On the resource assessment, so the first resource that I looked at was the solar irradiation of Mary University of Science and Technology. This informs on the size of the solar PV that we are going to install. So our monthly average of the global solar irradiation here at Mary University is 182.28 kilowatt hour per meter squared per month, and that translates to having in a day, our peaks an hour, it is 6 kilowatt hour per meter squared. For our wind speeds, they are also moderate. So at a height of 10, I got that our average wind speed is 5.5 meters per second. So this is the configuration of my system in Homer, whereby I had my biomass generator, I had my hydro, and my wind turbine, all of them connected to my AC bus, and all these, they supply my load, which is at the size that I've said, 1,158 kilowatt hour per day on consumption with a watt peak of 90 kilowatts. So I had to have my converter because, as I've said, my systems, some of the systems, I had to convert them from DC to AC so that you can be able to use them for our loads. And also I have my PV that is connected to my DC bus and my batteries that is going to give my backup power. Yeah, so from the simulation that I did at Homer, so what it gave me is, for Mary University of Science and Technology, if we needed to have or to supply our electrical energy needs independently without depending on the grid. So the sizes of these particular systems for solar PV is 169 kilowatt. For the wind turbine, it was only 1 kilowatt. For biomass, 100 kilowatts. For the hydrogen generator, it was 5.5. And this one, actually, it's 5.5 because for our system, that is the least amount of energy that you could give for this particular system. So for Homer, I could not give, even though hydropower for my system actually had the highest cost of all the components, I could not design it, or the system could not actually give me a lesser energy, a lesser power system for this particular system. And then for the amount of batteries that we needed for our system is 308 kilowatt hour for the batteries. For the inverter size, we added 3.7 kilowatt margin so that we don't have an issue when it comes to supply of our system, because our peak energy, as I've said, it was at 90. So we needed a inverter that supplies a slightly higher energy to be on the safer side. So the annualized system cost for this particular system, it gave me 3.6 million Kenya shillings per year. That's not the net present cost, but the annualized system cost. So from the design, as you can see, so my load is the one that is in blue. So if at all this design was was implemented, our loads would be met. During the day, as you can see, the load will be supplied by my solar, which is the one that gives the highest power. And then we also have my hydro, which is the one in light blue. We also have my batteries, which is in green, that will actually, if we have any excess energy that will be produced by my system, would be saved in the batteries, and then would be able to supply the power needs if at all there's no other energy system that is running. Yeah, so, and also I have now my, biomass generator in orange that would be mostly running from morning to around midday and also in the evening hours, so that to supply for the energy needs during the time when we don't have solar, when we don't have wind power to supply the total needs, and also when we don't have enough hydro power to supply for our energy needs. Yeah, so in conclusion, this design actually, I was able to meet all the energy demands for Meru University of Science and Technology, and it is a sustainable system that can be used without us having any other system. And from the system, actually, there was an excess energy that was produced at the end of the day, which was at 13.5%. And with this particular system, it is actually manageable for any institution to come up with this system compared to the amount of money that it's being used currently on our electrical energy needs. Yeah, so that's it on my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fiona. So I think that was a very interesting one. I want to welcome anyone who has a question or comment.
Thank you so much, Fiona. So my question is, why did you focus on Meru University, whereas we know we have some other areas that don't have even electricity at all? Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to come up with a system for campuses. So for me, I focused on Meru University because it's where I work currently and where I could get all the data at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Fiona, for that presentation. Mine is looking at the technique. Okay, what is HOMA? That's number one. Number two, looking at the results, wind is giving us 1 kilowatts. Did I see that?
Yes, it's true.
And then, sorry, let me finish. And then hydro is giving us 5.49. After this research, are you convinced that the wind component is still necessary or relevant? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. The first question is, what is HOMA? HOMA is a software that is used to model hybrid systems for whatever system that you have. If you have systems that have more than one component, you can be able to use HOMA. Actually, in full, it's known as the Hybrid Optimization Model of Electric Renewables. Yeah, so that is a software. Yeah, actually, after the research, when I saw for the wind turbine, it's actually 1 kilowatt. For other configurations, it was okay to do away with it because at the end of the day, we could see that our energy needs for the institution could still be met even without that particular component. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I'm here.
Sorry.
My name is Dr. Dorothy from Computer Science. I want to ask a question following what Anthony has asked and how you've answered it. You did your research in Meru University since you work in Meru University. So, which means the data collection was through convenience and the sample that you did. So would we say your results are not generalizable? Number one, because it was out of convenience, and methods of convenience are always biased. So because you had that part of having to correct data from everything that you know, might yourself as a researcher have influenced the results? And if we had somebody else carrying out the same research from other areas, would we end up with the same results? And if yes, how do we prove that?
Okay. Dorothy, thank you. Okay. Number one, for this kind of design, if I was to look at another university, most of these results, especially for the design of a system, it's usually site-specific. So for example, if I go to Kisumu, if I go to whatever region, then I can be able to actually, I'll get different results because of their location. Yes, definitely right now my results are biased because I got it for Mary University of Science and Technology. But if I was to go on another way, if I was to look at the energy consumption trends for universities, then definitely I'd have to come up with a larger sample size to be able actually to inform on the results of my research.
So I think that should have been quoted in your recommendations as one of the limitations, and also giving now your future intentions to ensure that because now currently as it is, we cannot just pick it and go out and run away and say, we have found results that now we can use and justify that weed is better than hydro or the others. So we would, maybe I would recommend, when you're forwarding your paper or the full paper, ensure you've captured that. And specifically the part that you said it's because you work with us in Mary University. That always, statistically, will always be questioned because it means you're favoring yourself. You didn't want to go out of your comfort zone to do a bigger sample, where you could even have picked another university that is neighboring us to just do a comparison. Yeah, so ensure maybe it's captured in your recommendations.
Okay, well noted. Thank you so much, Doc.
Mine is just a comment to say that I don't think, Viola, you are on the wrong path. You are in the right path because in research there is what we call a case study. So just add the word case study, Mary University, and you are done.
Thank you. It's actually added on my topic, but thank you for that.
And your everything becomes valid. You are working with the campuses. You are working with, you have defined your study area. It is limited to campuses. And in campuses, you picked a campus known as Mary University as your case study. You are well to do. Nobody will tell you you are off the line of research.
I think you've put a lot of effort. Just go to that table which was showing 3 million at the end.
Okay.
So hydro is the current source of electricity we are using, or what could that be? Hydro generators.
Yeah, it's the hydropower, but for this particular system, it's going to be mini hydro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, biomass from the kitchen and so forth, or from?
Biomass from animal waste,
Right.
and also from foliage from forest waste. Yeah.
So one wind turbine will be enough?
Sorry?
Wind turbine.
Yes, one wind turbine, according to my optimization, yeah, it was enough because there's also other systems that can be able to supply the energy needs for our system.
And what could be the number of panels?